Welcome back. Well, I'm back with ChatGPT 01 Mini, which I think at the time of giving this presentation, I think it's one of the best of the ChatGPT family out there. And I'm just going to show you. This is just live, so I don't know what's going to happen. I found some code which I was working on a few years ago, which is this here, which was from an ESP32. And what I was going to do as a student project was to implement what's called a crosstalk resistant adaptive noise canceller, which is an old idea. It's a method for separating two sound sources that are mixed together. Like, for example, two people speaking simultaneously should be able to separate them. And I've worked with this before, and it kind of be made to work, but I've never done it on a micro. I've done it on LabVIEW, which is an expensive platform, although very, very good. And I thought maybe I could slot it onto an ESP32 micro. So I think one of the students or myself started writing this. I think I wrote some of it and the student wrote some of it. I can't remember now. I wasn't very sure because I never used before the ADC of the analog to digital converter. So I needed two inputs basically for this separator, which is like two microphone inputs. And then you get two outputs. And what should happen is you should get one of the outputs should go through one digital analog converter, another one through the other, and they should be separated, well, up to a point, of course. And the length of the filter depends on how much you can fit into the processor and so on. I'm just going to put in here it's ESP32, so at least it knows that much information. It's a two-input cross-talk resistant noise canceller, and I don't know whether this code's going to work or not because I haven't tried it. But I thought what I'd do is I just put it into this ChatGPT, because this particular one is very good at suggesting what's wrong and improvements to code of any sort. So I'm just going to paste it in. I'm just going to say consider this code, and that's my C++ code. And you'll see it doesn't take it very long. Tackling initialization, there it goes. It's so fast that I've got to scroll back to see what's going on. Here we go. Two input crosstalk resistant noise canceller implemented on an ESP32. I'll explain its functionality, highlight potential issues, and suggest improvements to ensure it operates correctly. So that it goes in, the code implements an adaptive noise canceller using least mean squares. It's actually two least mean squares algorithms cross coupled. I don't know if it doesn't really matter whether you understand the theory here. It's all about ChatGPT 01 Mini and what it's doing really. And anyway, it goes through the program and first of all sort of summarizes what it does. And it says detailed analysis and potential issues. So it says the macros SBI, setbit and CBI of our AVR microcontrollers. So in other words, it's not right. The ADC is not going to work on this, the code in there. It would lead to compilation errors and undefined behavior. So it'll probably tell me how to do it, another way to do it, the proper way. This is code uses A0 and A1 for analog inputs, but they're typically referred to by the GPIO numbers, whatever. And not all GPIOs support ADC functions, well, that's true. So using the wrong analog pins can prevent the ADC from functioning properly. So it's saying what you should do is replace it with a valid pin here. Okay. The loop for shift, this is true as well, the loop for shift registers goes from n-1 to 0, which means that I go outside the range, I go into -1 in the array. So that's wrong, obviously, and that's going to give funny behavior. So it says, make sure that you don't do that. Here's a better way to do it. It's incredible, really. And it says the other thing it does is initialization of the arrays. Uninitialized arrays can lead to unpredictable filter. Yeah, so make sure that you initialize everything to 0. That's fine. The ADC was always going to be a problem because I'd not used the the analog to digital converters on the ESP32, and I'd heard they were a bit noisy and trouble, and I was actually thinking of just getting another one. People do use I2C ones, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's saying this is what you need to do, and then it maps the analog read, so on. There it is. Yeah, that's right. This and I've got a serial read. I don't know why I did that. And also, that's not a good idea anyway when you're doing I/O, because it slows everything down. It would be ridiculously slow. But sometimes it's nice to look at the serial in the ESP32 just to see everything. You're getting something in it all, even though it's not the right speed or anything. Eventually, you'd shut it off. It's saying you should use that speed instead for your serial port on your computer, 115200. And there's issues with the DAC output as well. So uncomment them, and that's how you do that. And then it's given me the revised code. So there's my revised code, which might work. I'm not suggesting it would work, but it probably would be close to working, more than my one version would. It's genned up the code a bit better than mine, made it look much neater. It's not a very big program, of course, and it tells me the key changes. So I'm going to ask it, I'm just going to say, I have heard, don't know what's happened there. Sometimes you get this funny behavior in it. Oh, let's see what's wrong. I should have, it's a bit slow there. Well, it goes on to a whole lot of other things. Testing, debugging, performance optimization, memory management. But I'm just going to, before I do that, I'm going to say I have heard that the ADC of the ESP32 has issues. Can I use an external I2C one instead? And if so, suggest a possible solution and relist the code. Thinking, it says, evaluate. Oh, look at the speed of that. Now it's off. Again, I've got to scroll back because it's so fast. Absolutely, you're correct that the ESP32's internal ADC is going to exhibit several issues. Nonlinear response, noise and interference, limited resolution and accuracy, crosstalk between channels. So a recommended external 12 I2C ADC. Of course, this is all on the net. People have been through this before, but it's nice to have it all in the one place, isn't it? Use a 16-bit. I think the ESP is a 12-bit. Yeah, it's one. So use a 16-bit one. Differential inputs. Okay. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, for reducing noise. A programmable gain amplifier. Yeah, multiple channels. So it's suggesting this one, ADS1115. It's even given the wiring diagram of the thing. Okay, it's telling me how to connect it, which is really helpful. It means you don't even have to bother with that. But you need the wire library. That's easy to get. I've got that already for I2C. Need the Adafruit ADS1X15 library, and tells you how to install the library. And here's the revised code, which might even work. You know, you never know. It might even work. One of the issues, of course, we might have is that it won't be fast enough because it's still a micro. It's not. You might not get a filter length of 64, and really to get separation of any sort, you need a reasonable number of weights on an adaptive filter. Then this is 2 adaptive filters. So here's the main code here. And of course, this need not be for an ESP32. This could be for any micro. And it's given me the code for that particular I squared C A to D. I don't know why it's commented that out, the initialize the weights. Never mind, but that's a minor thing. And these are the shifting of the so-called regression vectors. That's the output of the adaptive filter. These are the two errors because there's two least mean squares algorithms. Sorry I can't show you it working. I mean, that would take a little bit of effort because you'd have to get two preamplifiers. Actually, I might ask it for that as well. So it's commented out all that stuff. So these are optional if you want. Oh, if you write to the DAX, well, you wouldn't have to write to the DAX because there's not much point otherwise, because you won't be able to hear what's going on otherwise, will you? So it included I squared, the Adafruit, this one, gain and data rate configuration, differential measurements, handling DAC. So the original code are DAC inputs. If you intend to use the DAC ones, you can uncomment and adjust those lines accordingly. That's okay. Or I could be really lazy and just get it to do it. Ensure that E1 and E2 are within the DACs. That's correct. Otherwise, you get problems. Floating point mapping. Scale floating point voltage is approximately 100 kilohertz I squared C speed, and it's optimizing the adaptive filter. Yeah, of course, see, it knows about this as well. The filter length and the step size mu. If you make mu too big, it'll go unstable. So that's another issue that you could ask it to fiddle with. You could have an external control perhaps for the step size. Otherwise, you have to keep restarting it. When you're testing, it can be a bit of a nuisance. Monitor the convergence. Yeah, you'd have to look at that on a scope though. You can't. If you look on the serial port, it'll slow it down. So you don't really want to look on the serial port. And of course, you want test signals to do it. And that's it really. And quite incredible, I think. It's already relisted the code, isn't it? And if you wanted to, I could say I'm fed up with the ESP32. I'm going to be using this other processor, one that's hasn't got the Arduino, the Arduino environment, and how do I do that? And it'll take you through all the steps and that, and save you a huge amount of time. And in fact, it might have even written this for me completely if I'd asked it, but I didn't, But I could have said, I wonder if it knows it'll know what a crosstalk adaptive noise canceller is. Let's have a look. What is a crosstalk adaptive noise canceller? And give references. Save it. I mean, it's a very old idea because to an extent it's been replaced by really sophisticated methods called blind source separation. But they're not going to run on an ESP32. The reason I picked this is it can run on an ESP32. Yeah, it's not quite got that right. But this is a bit better. That's true. It's talking quite generally here. So this paper is an old paper on adaptive noise cancelling, the original one, and this one is Haken's book, which again is a classic book, but it doesn't mention any book. Oh yeah, here it is. Oh, it's referenced me. So this is when I did this on. It's funny that she mentioned me. I did this on a LabVIEW on a FPGA. Oh. But that's not the original paper. I got the idea from another paper. It's MathWorks Adaptive Filter Toolbox. My God, what's this? It's system architecture. So I could say something like, is this method as good as blind source separation? Now this is another way that, again, it's still not that new, it's about over 20 years old, where you can separate using the fact that two signals are uncorrelated from one another. And it's called independent component analysis. I think I've got some videos on this. I've actually got videos on the FPGA one as well somewhere on here, I think, on this channel, yeah. So I'll probably now discuss the difference between the two as applied. I didn't say the last time, to the separation of two speech signals. I'll make it acoustically. So you do have to pay for this, but it's a very little amount, and considering how much you're saving. So it's going to give me a summary of that. Key characteristics, then blind source separation, no prior information needed. Actually, it could probably do a nice simulation of both of them if you asked it in Python or MATLAB. That would be quite interesting, and do a comparison. You could just get it to whet your appetite. Oh, it's got some, yeah, it's got some papers and things. Let's just do it, just to see if it'll do this. Can you write, I'll just make it a MATLAB program that will show the operation of blind source separation applied to two speech files. The speech files will be, normally, just to make life easier, we if you've done the pre-recording of the speech files, you just have them on a stereo recorder of some sort, so you have a stereo WAV file. You can make it or MP3. You get more versatility if you use Python, because it's got so many libraries to do with manipulating audio for that. So, but I'll just leave it at that to just give you an idea. I'll just say list the code. Certainly. So it's a comprehensive MATLAB program that demonstrates the operation of blind source separation. My God, load the stereo file, pre-processing. It needs the fast ICA toolbox, unfortunately. I don't know if I've got that. But you can download it. But I don't know if I've got that. So that might be an issue. But anyway, here's the code. Actually, because that might be an issue because I don't have that toolbox, I'm just going to say, can you repeat the above in Python? There's probably Python libraries that are free and you don't have to buy them. No problem. Let's do a Python one instead. In fact, I could probably do C++ if you wanted, anything you like. So here's a Python program for blind source separation. You need that this library. That's just the matplot library, which is like a copy of MATLAB's library. Well, it looks very similar. I don't think it's a one. That's the sound device. That's to handle the microphones and everything. Librosa, I think I've used before. I can't remember what that is. That's probably for the blind source separation. So here it is here. Load a WAV file. That's the sampling rates. NumPy is the library that does multiplying numbers and so on. So this is very similar to MATLAB, the plotting stuff. FastICA. So if this is its own. That stands for Independent Component Analysis. So where's it getting that from? Normalizing the signals. It's going to send the output files there. Then it's going to plot the separated signals, and it's going to plot the spectrograms as well. My God, I might try this. And it's going to do in here. It is pre-processing, FastICA. How is the FastICA being done? What library? What? Well, I know it's created its own thing called Apply FastICA. Yeah, what library? So it's going to tell me how it's been done. It's scikit-learn. Using the FastICA class. That's how you do that. Okay, but anyway, provide a full listing of the code. Now the things you can get wrong here, you could, it might not, it might need certain, in some applications you need certain sampling intervals and so on. So if that can go wrong, then you need to go back and get it to change that, of course, change the sampling rates and things. But other than that, I mean, it's easy to do that. Generally, it's not far away from working solutions usually when you do this. So here's the code. So that's for the, I think it's in Librosa Advanced Signal. Well, I don't know why it says optional. Just booted up PyCharm, which is the Python thing. I'm just going to look at the code before I paste it in. It says I need NumPy, matplot library, and here's this thing, sklearn decomposition. That's the library that's going to do the so-called independent component analysis. I was just going to plot the results, I think, at the moment, but I really want to listen to it eventually, but they can do that later. So I'll just paste it into the editor. And we need these libraries, so I'll say he's got to install them. So Python just grabs the libraries from the net. You don't need to, this particular one does anyway, so you don't need to worry about where it's coming from. It's got a number there, a number of them to do. So let's do the next one. You can put a file in which installs them a little bit quicker. That's another way, but not when you're just doing things like this. Needs Librosa. So it's downloading, it's taken a little while to download these libraries. That's the independent component analysis one, sklearn, which I'd never heard of before, but I'm doing about it now. It's going to do that. It's got to update the skeletons, it says. Mind you, that was yesterday, Halloween. They got some strange names they use in the Python community. The thing about Python is it's certainly not one of the friendliest of things to use, but it's a huge community and it's got tons of software available, which is free, and it's kind of worth learning, really. I'm not suggesting you can use all of it, for commercially or anything, but if you're in a learning curve or research, it's certainly one of the ways to go. Certainly nowadays with neural networks and learning and so on, deep learning. It probably, I don't know if it's got them all now. Looks like it's got them, but it might have missed one of the libraries. So this hasn't got a GUI, so it'll be expecting me to put in a file path. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, that's not much. There's the file path here. Don't think it will. Oh, it might do actually. Well, let's see. Normally it puts in a GUI interface, which it hasn't got there. That sound device, it doesn't take very long. Librosa. And this thing called Librosa Display. Sorry it's taking a bit of time, but I'm going to show you how to do it. I've got to, that's how long it takes in real time, so to speak. It shouldn't need that, it's already got it, so let's just see. Yeah, so it's saying audio file, mixed signals file not found, of course, because I haven't specified it. So what I do here, if one, two of you're lazy, is go back and say this error occurred. Can we browse for a file instead? That makes life much easier. Use a GUI. Certainly. So once I've loaded the libraries when I can delete this one, it's because it's, I don't want to have to go through all that again with the libraries, but it takes a bit of time to put them in. Get rid of that. And it's already relisted the program. Gosh, it's so fast. That's a copy. That's the main file. Let's see what I might need the GUI library. tkinter, where is it? Oh, there it is, tkinter. There it is. It's already browsing for the library, for the file. So I'm not going to go through this because I'm not suggesting it's going to work straight away, but I'll have to get myself some stereo files. But it gives you a very good idea of what you can do very, very quickly. The speed you can work at with this thing is quite phenomenal. And no, it's not cheating. These are I've just stopped it. That's why it did that. These are tedious things to do often, and it's better the computer does it. Yes, you need an understanding of what's going on. This is the library here it's using. It hasn't put a proper GUI in yet. It's just browsing for the file, but I can ask it to put a proper GUI, with various knobs on it and so on, at a later date. Well, before we go any further, I suppose I should tell you a little bit more about the theory, and because it's a bit abstract at the moment. But it's very simple. The basic idea here is that we're trying to separate two voice signals at the moment. It doesn't have to be voice signals. It could be two other types of signals, but it's usually voice in this kind of area that we're dealing with. So you've got two speakers who are speaking into two microphones, not one microphone. And Stan and Kyle here, as you can see. And Stan's voice will get to the first one of the microphones through one transfer function, some path in the acoustic environment. And Kyle's voice will also get to another microphone. Of course, it will get to both microphones. So Stan here, his voice will go to that microphone and to that microphone. And so there's some, if you like, acoustic transfer function between there and there, between there and there. And of course, it might also in a room bounce off a wall as well and come back again. So it's maybe not as simple as you think. It's just, you might think it's just a time delay or something coming from here to here. The same with Kyle. He's coming into that microphone and that microphone, and he could bounce off the wall as well. He could bounce off several times. So in a reverberant environment in a room, it can end up that these transfer functions can be quite complex. And they're not really simple things. Whereas if you're outside with no reverberation, it can be as simple as a delay or a constant between the microphones. But the idea of blind source separation is not knowing what these transfer functions are. Can we get back to the individual voices? And it's a sort of very advanced type of filtering, isn't it, really? But you might think, well, why don't we just filter them? But of course, if you filter them with a normal filter, you find that two voices, the frequencies overlap one another. And so you can't filter them just with an ordinary convolution filter, if you like. So what you need to be able to do is somehow to be able to find what these transfer functions are and kind of invert them. But you can't do that because you don't have that information. But the theory goes around that anyway. So clear the applications: hearing aids, mobile phones, speech recognition. And so there's a number of ways to do it. The way, of course, being old, I started a long time ago with adaptive filters using this thing called least mean squares. But if you do that, you need what's called a voice activity detector, which needs to detect the noise on its own. Now you can do that in some times in some applications, but it's just one speaker, and the speaker in between utterances, the noise appears, or if the speaker pauses like this, then the noise is in the background and you can estimate the noise. So there's ways around that. You can use spectral subtraction, was one of the earliest methods, and then least mean squares came out, and there's a whole load of applications on that. So this is a variation on that method, but the one I'm going to show you first isn't. It's a newer method. So there's this thing called unsupervised adaptive filtering or blind source separation. So that came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. But the trouble is the algorithms can be quite computationally intensive for real-time implementation. But it uses the principle of independent component analysis, ICA. Now what that is, it's an assumption that if you've got two different speakers, statistically they're not correlated with one another in any way whatsoever. And this is going to be true all the time, really. In other words, it's not in any way related, one voice to another. What I'm using is a method from, I think it goes back to the late 70s, a crosstalk resistance adaptive noise canceller without a voice activity detector. It uses cross-coupled least mean squares algorithms. Why am I doing that? Why was I doing that? Because it's simple to implement. That's the only reason. The independent component analysis, unless you use FFTs, which you can do, can be quite complex to implement in real time. At least it's very easy to do it on a computer because in reverberant environments the filter orders can be quite large. That's the maths behind it. So you've got, this is a vector here, you've got two speech signals, and you've got a matrix of transfer functions, or you can call it a transfer function matrix if you like. And these are the original speech signals, T1 and T2. So you get that one times T1 plus that one times T2, a cross-coupled term. You can actually simplify this a little bit by absorbing H11 into T1 and H22 into T2, and you get a simplified model where this isn't 1, and then you've got these unknowns G21, G12. That's an easier way for 2 only. Of course, the subject blind source separation goes beyond that, and it goes beyond just 2 inputs. It can have many more inputs than that. And you can represent the mixing here as that's the original mixing model with these unknown acoustic transfer functions. Or you can do this as the modified version where you absorb the H11 and the H22, and you have these G21 and G12 unknowns. These are the received signals at the microphones. These are the original signals, T1 and T2. And then this is the unmixing model. If only you had G12 and G21, that's all you needed to do. Apply this, if you like, geometry. You put your corrupted speech in there, your mixtures, the 2 received microphones, and out there is the separated speech. And that's the maths behind it. 2 least mean squares algorithms. Now, in terms of the mathematics, it was shown, whoever invented this, later, that it's not guaranteed to converge in real life, but I've found that most of the time it does actually work, and it can be made to work quite well. Somebody else came along about, goodness knows, 10 years ago, and changed and it modified it so that it is kind of guaranteed to converge, but it's much more complicated. It means it'll take much longer to implement in real time. So that's obviously a problem. So that's why I'm just stick to the simple one version of it. These are the weights on the least mean squares. I'm afraid you have to understand least mean squares to know this, but these mu1 and mu2 are gains, which you'll see when we eventually make the thing itself. We can make them the same, mu1 equals mu2. If you make them too big, it won't work. It'll become unstable. If you make them too small, the convergence will be too slow, and you won't get very good quality. These are regressors, past values of the error signals, because we've got 2 error signals, E1 and E2, superscripts here, and I won't bore you with any more details. But this is the block diagram of how it works. The error on this one and the error on this one, updating weights. So it's a bit of a theoretical fiddle in a way, because as I say, it's not guaranteed to converge, but it seems to work anyway for a lot of problems, and it's very simple. So I quite like the idea. And I implemented it with FPGA, so that was and that would work quite well. So I know this method actually works quite well. Let's get rid of that. And I asked, as you could see earlier, for a Python program with, well, later I changed it to a GUI to demonstrate this. And the ChatGPT 01 Mini came up with this, and I'm going to run it. Actually, this was the second attempt. The first attempt, it didn't have the GUI, if you perhaps remember. It just had a thing to load the file, to browse the file, but I got it to put this in. It only took another go, I think, and it did it. It was very, very quick. So I've actually got files from way back which I used in earlier tests, which have got recorded mixtures. Some of them, unfortunately, I can't remember where they're from. So such a long time ago. But I'm going to look at this one, which is called Paris Stereo. It's not my one, and it's a mixture of somebody speaking. I don't know whether they're called Paris or whether it's in the streets of Paris. Somebody speaking with the sound of the road in the background. I'll just play the mix signal. Just play it again, so you can hear him speaking and the noise of the traffic. By the way, it's already done the separation here. It shows it here. Those are the original signal, the two channels that's received, channel 1 and channel 2. Can't play them originally. These are the. Well, it hasn't done it. Does it? Have it done the separated one? I'm not sure. Anyway, I can play the separated ones. Whether I don't know if it's graphing them. See, there's nothing there but just the sound of the street, so it separated the voice. Let's listen to the second one.
And taken by the light in her arms, I may without fail, at long and dear last, suffer the first vision that set fire to the stars.
Well, you can hear that sounds like perfection, but unfortunately, and that one I don't really know how it was made up. And the chances are it's made up with what's called a constant mixing matrix. So in real life, as I showed you earlier, you get this acoustic addition of signals. You don't just get a scalar constant, which you can approximate to in some environments, admittedly. Perhaps outside, if there's not much reverberation, you might get away with that, actually. So let's look at another one. I'm going to have to come out. I think it's got a problem if I run it this time again, so I'm just going to run it a second time. I'm just going to read. So this is Professor Mark Gurlami. He had this posted. He's an ex-colleague of ours. And he recorded himself speaking twice with playing back, I think, 2 different sets of speech. And it's a little bit harder to see what's going on there. So let's...
He went after his famous light bulb. Edison didn't really invent a better bulb. Twice as old. He designed the entire system to go with it.
So you can see there is there's 2 voices, the same voice of course, but it's different types of different things he's saying. Let's try and separate them.
Scientists in South America have discovered mummies from the ancient civilization of Chinchero. He went after his famous more than 7,800 years old, nearly twice as old as the oldest Egyptian mummy.
So you can see, you can still hear the other one quite loudly, so it's not really doing much.
Edison controlled a virtual monopoly in direct current electrical business. He went after his famous light bulb. Edison didn't really invent a better bulb. He designed the entire system to go with it.
So I wouldn't have said that was really that good at all. But it worked on the first one okay, and that's due to the nature of the original signals. What we really need is a method to deal with transfer functions. So this basic blind source separation only deals with constant mixing. It's called a constant mixing matrix, where it's not a transfer function matrix as I showed you earlier. It's just an ordinary matrix with constants in it which are unknown. So we need a better method to do that. So what I'm going to try is I'm going to take my original simple method, the crosstalk resistant adaptive noise canceller, and use this GUI. I'm just going to tell the AI to use this GUI, take my C program and convert it into Python, and it'll just see how it performs, if it's any better or any worse. Now it will have problems with stability, because if I don't pick the step length the right size, it'll either be too slow to converge or it'll go unstable if it's too big. So it has its own problems, but it's very simple, and it can deal with convolution mixing, even though it's not an optimal separator by any means. But I mean, I used to be very much into this optimal thing, oh, it's not optimal, it's no good. But I mean, does your ear really know what is optimal and what isn't optimal? If something is good enough, I think most of the time we accept it. So let's just go now and see if we can get the AI to create a Python program from my original micro program, which was written in C++. Well, in another video, I said that ChatGPT was like grease lightning. I actually think it's more like magic, this version 4.01 mini.
Ho, 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 it's magic, you know.
So what I did was I took that C program and I said to it, look, I don't want a C program at the moment. What I'm interested in is a Python program using the same GUI that I've got already, and you can gen it up if you like, sort of thing. Well, at least it can do that if it wants. And lo and behold, it did it for me. It worked basically first time. I'm going to show you now. There was one small problem to do with the files, but that was just because I was playing them too soon before it finished its execution. So it put a thing in there to stop you from playing the files out before it had finished doing what it was doing. And it's quite surprising, the quality now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the one that wouldn't work properly with the independent component analysis of line source separation, at least with the simplified form. Remember, this is convolutive mixing, I think, anyway. This particular algorithm is. So here's the GUI that it produced. 64 weights is the minute. I can make that anything I like. The 64 is probably a little bit high for a micro, unless it was a DSP one or something. But we'd have to see really, especially if it was floating point. But I do get results from 16 weights anyway, so it's not so bad. If I make the step size too big, I'll put a thing in saying, it'll complain and say it's too big, reduce it because it goes unstable. So let's look for Mark Guglielmi's file again, and we'll run it through this system. Notice it says processing audio, 80% now, right? There it goes.
When he went after his famous light bulb, Edison didn't really invent a better bulb. He designed the entire system to...
So you can see that's the mixture of the two. Actually, it shows you the two channels. Each one's got part of the other, and these are the separated ones. Not that it really means a lot to you at the moment because you haven't heard it. I mean, it could be anything, couldn't it? So I'm going to play out one of them, which you might hear the other one slightly in the background, but let's see. If there's any reverberation, that's just because I'm putting the microphone nearer the speakers just to make sure that I get a decent signal, really.
Edison controlled a virtual monopoly in the direct current electrical business. When he went after his famous light bulb, Edison didn't really invent a better bulb. He designed the entire system to go with it.
You can see I can barely hear the other input. Let's do another one, the other channel.
Scientists in South America have discovered mummies from the ancient civilization of Chincheros that are more than 7,800 years old, nearly twice as old as the oldest Egyptian mummy.
Now that's what I call separation. And the amazing thing is it interpreted that algorithm that I put in and wrote the code, and all I have to do, these sort of little finesses with plain WAV files makes it much easier to use. I can also read in MP3 files, by the way. Now it doesn't save the outputs at the moment because I don't really want them saved. But if I did, I could put that in very easily as well. So let's look for another file. Now this one was quite a hard one to do, as I remember way back. The Uno Duo one. This is two people speaking together. I think one in Italian and one in English. I can't remember. We'll hear in a minute. And let's have a listen to them together.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So they're both speaking at the same time. Now this is from the Salk Institute, which is a research institute in California, I think. And they were doing work a long time ago, but they're still doing work on biological systems, separating various ECG signals and stuff like that. But they also were working on speech, I think, as well, as an example. Now let's play out, separate it, one channel.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
It's not bad, really. I mean, you can hear a little residual from the other one. Now this should be the Italian output.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 y 10.
That's not bad. Of course, I can change the various things. I can make the step size, but now as I increase the number of weights, the step size needs to go down a bit. That's a standard LMS thing. Let's just put the weights up to 108 and see what it can do. Normally it introduces distortion if you make the weights too big, or the gain too big rather, not the weights. Let's put this, I'll put to 0.1 and see if it'll take it. See if it'll take any more. So it's not liking that, so I've got to load it in again, I'm afraid. Don't know why it doesn't like it, but it's maybe a good thing not to do that. So 128 weights, let's process it. So it says the step size is too big, so that's something I put in, because otherwise you get daft results. So let's make it 0.05. Oh, can't do 0.04, let's see. It's doing it now. 80-90%. So let's listen to the individual channels again. First channel.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Can hear a little bit of a grunt from the other channel, but not too bad.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 y 10.
That's not bad at all. Let's have a look at some other files I've got. There's the Paris one's a little bit. There's a music one, which is another sulk one. Let's see. Can't remember now. And this one takes a lot longer. I don't know why. I think it must be a longer file or whatever. It seems to take much longer to process. Tells you the sampling frequency down here, 22 kilohertz. It's quite high actually, that when I used to work at much lower sampling rates, like sometimes 8 kilohertz if I could, because for speech you don't need huge high fidelity, or at least half of 22, what's 12.025 kilohertz. I think I used to work that, because that's the sound card won't work at 8 necessarily. So we're only 60% of the way through. I thought the graphs were nice. These are sort of mimicking MATLAB. It's using the MATLAB library, which I don't think has anything to do with MATLAB, but they're sort of mimicking what MATLAB would do. As far as I know, I might be wrong. Maybe MATLAB does actually contribute to this, but I think they're open source because they come with PyCharm. You can do a lot of things that you can. So here we go. So let's just play the mix signal first. It doesn't look like much there, does it?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I think this is from the Salk Institute. Let's play out one signal.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
The music's suppressed.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Now let's listen to the other channel. Getting it to stop is a problem. I don't know why this one keeps playing. I'll stop it anyway. I think you can get the idea. It's not really so much most about the subject matter. Of course, you could be working in any topic. It's the speed that you can work at, really, using these large language models. But you've got to be careful which ones you choose. If you start using some of the other ones, they can make a lot of mistakes. This particular one doesn't make many mistakes. It makes mistakes, but not many mistakes. I didn't think it was that good at maths, to be honest. I was testing it yesterday at maths, and it wasn't particularly good at differentiation of matrix expressions and things. But never mind. Can't do everything. It seems to be particularly good at software. So, different way of working, like having an expert next to you, an expert programmer. You're not having to worry about the fine details anymore. In the past we had to have log tables when we were at school because we didn't have calculators or any kind of machines. And of course you had to know how to do that. So it was a tedious thing. You had to look up, numbers in a table and write them down and add them and so on. Then we got calculators. And then it wasn't a problem anymore. Then we got we had computers, but we got home computers eventually, or computers at the university. And that made life even easier again. This is just another level up from all of this. And we have to find a way of working, with it. I think it's a fantastic thing. Just make sure you get you're using the right one. I like to do thorough tests first. This one's particularly good for 01 Mini, and it's like magic.